Thanks for coming today. Just wanted to announce a couple announcements before we get going. This week, the Statesman Athletics will host Meets the Statesman Spring Edition. It'll be Saturday at noon at Parker Field, McCool Stadium. Games for kids. Kids will receive, in attendance will receive at free admission to our doubleheader basketball game, which will be Saturday at 2 and 4 p.m. versus Christian Brothers. So it will be right here at Parker Field, McCool Stadium. All our spring sports, baseball, softball, men's and women's tennis, and golf will be there with fun and games and refreshments as well for everybody in attendance. So please come on out there. The Statesman and Lady Statesman basketball back in action Thursday versus Union. Those games will be 5:30 and 7:30 at Walter Sillers Coliseum, and then, of course, Saturday 2 and 4 p.m. versus Christian Brothers. We'll bring up head coach Mike Neighbor to talk about the men's schedule and the recap last week road trip to Valdosta in West Florida.
Appreciate everybody being here. Wish I had better results to talk about, but it just didn't happen. That's always a tough road trip. We were in position to win the game at West Florida, which is always, when you go on these Thursday, Saturday road trips, you always hope if you can get that first one. And we knew going in that the first one was the more winnable of the two games, that Valdosta is clearly in another level. West Florida, more in the middle of the pack. So we knew going into Thursday if we could get that game, and we had our chances. We did if you guess kind of the story of our season, if you look at the 4 or 5 minutes between the 9-minute and 4-minute mark of the second half, where we managed to go from a back and forth kind of game to being down 13, and then you look at the last 4 minutes of the game where we went on a 13-0 run, managed to tie it with about 20 seconds to go. Did a really good job defensively. It's one of those things, in Division II, it seems like they get the best of both worlds sometimes. We did a great job defensively, tied the score after a 13-0 run, got a big bucket inside. They come down. We're guarding them. We're stopping them. Their guy falls to the floor with a ball. Now, I'll give the refs the benefit that he was still dribbling the ball, that it was fumbling. I think a lot of times it would have been called a travel, but I'll let that one slide. They call timeout. Their coach realizes this is going nowhere. They blow the whistle. They call timeout. Now there's 1.8, 1.7 seconds on the clock, and they're taking it out on the side. Well, the refs come together, and they figure out that they're going to add a second. Now, how they figure that one out without being able to go to the videotape or anything, they just mysteriously add a second. Now, the shot clock was less than the game clock, actually. When they got the ball after our basket, it was one of those where the game clock was like on 31 seconds. So there was like a half a second, 3/4 of a second. So anyway, somehow they get it in, and we did make a defensive mistake, but somehow they get the ball in about the top of the key, and a guy takes 2 dribbles, maybe 3, gets to the rim, doesn't make it, but they call a foul. And I think it was one of those that I think if we're gonna talk about seconds and going back to the shot clock and everything, I think it was questionable whether they got it off in time, whether the foul happened before. I think it was questionable. Do you call? Again, officials would say you call the game like it's 20 minutes to go in the start of the second half, but it was a tough one to take. I mean, I think it's one that traditionally officials would say, let the kids decide the game. And they shoot a free throw with the clock expired, and that's all she wrote. So, we lose a heartbreaking game. It was funny, Valdosta's coach, Mike, Saturday goes, boy, you guys really, he said, you guys really got the shaft there Thursday night. And I said, well, he said, I can't believe you didn't get more upset. I said, you know what? They shot the free throw, went in. What am I going to do? And I shook the other coach's hand, and, what are you going to do? It just was a tough loss in a game that was winnable. So that really hurt. It would have been great to get that one. we knew Valdosta was going to be tough. We started out the game at Valdosta. We had a specific game plan. We're still working. We're still a work in progress in a lot of things, teaching the offense, figuring out things we want to do defensively. But another thing we're a work in progress with some of these guys too is follow the game plan, because we're sitting there. We got the lead early, but it was going to be a back and forth kind of game. We, I guess, with about 3.5 minutes to go, the under 4-minute timeout, we were down 3, and we proceed to come down and take 2 quick shots that play right into their fast break. They run down, lay them in, and the next thing you know, we're down 10. We had the ball on the side with about 10 seconds to go, and we make a nice read, get the ball in, get a back cut to the basket, wide open layup, miss it. They take it out of the net, off the rim, shove it down our throat like they did often during the game. Now instead of down 8, we're down 12. And Valdosta's explosive. They got one of those kind of teams that just attacks, and we could have done better. That, like I said, that was a tough game. We knew it was going to be a tough game. I think Valdosta is one of the best 5 teams in the region, and on the road. Also, when you're on these long road trips, another buddy of mine after the game, coaching friend, said, he said, when you play them later, you're going to be a step quicker and they're going to be a step slower. And I'm like, how do you figure that? He said, they're the ones that are going to be on the long bus trip. And I thought, well, that's a good point. But we're going to keep trying. We're going to keep working, keep trying to grow. Fortunately, we've got a couple of home games this week that, again, are winnable. Union is a team that is really talented team. Picked second preseason. They've been kind of up and down. They beat Valdosta at their place earlier. They've won some really good games, and then they've lost a couple that you kind of scratch your head and say, how did they lose to them? But they were second pick of the coaches, and they were my second place pick preseason. So a lot of respect. They got basically everybody back. But I do think, it's a team that we match up pretty well with. So if we bring it, I think we've got a chance to get back on track. Right now, if the season ended today, we're 8th and we're in the tournament. And that right now has got to be our number one goal, to try to stay in that top 8. But the thing is, we're a half a game behind Union. So if we can get that win Thursday night, then we jump up to 7 from where we are right now. If we can get that one Saturday, and it's one of those deals where you're a game or 2 out of 5th and 4th place, but you're also a game or 2 out of last place. It's early, and every game matters. So hopefully, we've been playing pretty well here. So hopefully we'll bounce back Thursday night and take care of Union, and then of course the Saturday game is going to be a little unusual for me, but we're going to try to focus on Union first, and we'll worry about those guys from Memphis on Saturday.
You obviously know that was going to be a question today.
Yeah.
So you don't like talking about 600 wins, but could you talk a little bit about playing the school you used to coach for?
Well, the reason I don't like talking about 600 wins is I'm still stuck there. I'm still working on 601. So hopefully Thursday night we can take care of that. Yeah, I mean it's going to be a really weird situation. I was, before I went to CBU, I was at Bethel College for 16 years. The thing that made that transition easier is I didn't have to play Bethel. We did one time, but we were in a different league, so it wasn't like I had to go back. I've never been back coaching a game in McKenzie. That's going to be a whole nother thing when we get to that point in February, when I have to go back to Memphis into that building. But, there's still a lot of kids on that team that I care a lot about, and that a couple of those seniors were there with me. They redshirted as freshmen. I wish I hadn't redshirted them now, because Brad Miller, the little point guard or little 2 guard, I wish I'd have played him his freshman year, so he'd be done with his eligibility now, and he could have helped us win some more games that first year. But like I said, there's kids on that team that I still care, and and we left. They lost some good players. We lost the best one to graduation, and the second best one transferred. But for the we left some solid players. that are contributing to that team. So, you know, like I said, I coached a lot of those guys for 4 years. That is, you know, it'll be different. You know, it's kind of, I've had some experiences like that. You know, Dave Moore at West Georgia that played for me and coached with me last year at West Georgia in anticipation of the first time we actually got to coach against each other. You know, that was kind of weird, and I told Dave after the game, I said, you know, it got me more than I thought it would. I wasn't expecting it to be as emotional, looking down and seeing, hey, there's this guy that played for 4 years for me and was with me on the staff for 3 or 4 years. It's different. So, you know, and am I looking forward to it? No, but it's going to happen, and you know, if you know, hopefully, and it's a winnable game. That's even more important. It's a very winnable game if we play well. So hopefully we'll do that, because the one thing for our guys, it's not, you know, how meaningful is it to my guys, but the thing we've got to make them understand is CBU is going to be up. Those guys are going to be ready to play. You know, so we better get our guys ready in kind. But again, we got Union first. So.
And this is kind of a twofold question. What did the refs say to you about putting that second back on? And then also, did you ask them why there would be no time left in regulation, but also a foul? I feel like there would have to be at least a point something on the clock, because that would, to
call the foul. Yeah.
Make sense.
Yeah. You know what? The short answer. What did they say to me? Nothing, because it was all going on the other end of the floor, and it was like, you know, we were huddled thinking, you know, we were huddled talking about setting up our defense to try to contain them in that last couple seconds. Like I said, we did it. They actually had called one timeout. They got it with over 30, and they called one timeout when they crossed half court to set up a play. We did, like I said, we did a great job. We basically. And like I said, one guy was driving away from the basket and fell with the ball as he was dribbling, and that's when our coach, you know, yelled for another timeout, because he knew where it was, they weren't going to get a shot. And you had to feel pretty good about our chances we were on a 13-0 run. If we can get this thing into overtime, you know, I like our chances. But, you know, everything was going on the other end of the floor. It was one of those, by the time we realized that they had put another second on, which again, when they decide they're going to do stuff like that, you're spitting in the wind. You're not going to get anything out of them. They're not going to change anything. You know, but your point is well taken on the fact that maybe there should have been 0.3 of a second or something, you know, because the other point that could have been made too is, and it's happening, and it happened so fast, it's like, well, there was less time on the shot clock than there was on the game clock. So therefore, if the foul happened, you know, so there was a lot of things about that are, when you look back on it and watch it on film, and the foul was not anything, you know, it wasn't anything flagrant. It wasn't, you know, you look at it and go, well, regular game, if they, you know, 10 minutes to go in the game, if the guy blows his whistle on that, you go, well, yeah, maybe, but not the last play of the game. But it happens, and we're going to move on. You know, that's all we, you know, I keep preaching to them, and of course it doesn't matter if you're having a great year or a bad year, you've got to be focused on that, you know, when that game's over, you know, you can't let it beat you twice. You know, you got to bounce back and get ready to play the next one. And, you know, that's where we are right now. And again, we got a couple here at home that we're, you know, looking forward to getting back here. You know, like I said, we've been playing pretty well here this year, so hopefully we can bounce back and get these two at home, and then next week we'll worry about figuring out how we're going to try to finally win a road conference game.
From this particular team, from a mentality standpoint, do they have a particular little bit of a different mindset here at home? Do they have what's the biggest thing that makes it so much better at home this year than on the road?
I don't think it's really any different than anybody anywhere in America. You know, I'm sitting at home kind of, you know, regrouping from that long road trip, that long night we got back. Actually, bus drivers was probably our MVP coming back. We got back about 3:30 in the morning, and I think we were expecting it to be closer to 5. So but you know, I laying around on the couch yesterday recuperating and getting ready to watch the football games. watching what happened to Michigan State yesterday kind of puts it all in perspective. What can happen to a really, really good team on the road, so it's tough on the road, for a lot of reasons, and a lot of it too. Mississippi College. One thing that affects us too. We play that game at West Florida, and we're in a battle. That game was a war as far as the way it was played and the way we went after each other. And Mississippi College is struggling. So Valdosta Thursday night, they're at home, and they're winning by 20, 25. So they're kind of easing in. And then then Friday we get up and have to drive 4.5 hours to Valdosta, and that's a factor. It's not an excuse. You can't, but it does make a difference. And so, I don't think there's anything that I could pinpoint. If there was, I'd try to deal with it. But as of right now, if you got anybody notices anything, I'm all ears. As far as what maybe we're what we're doing, what we need to be doing differently. But and some of it too, I think if we had played Valdosta first and then gone to West Florida, because we're not playing as good a team on Saturday. Not taking anything away from West Florida. They're right there with us. But clearly Valdosta's the better team. I think maybe we would have been able to play Valdosta on Thursday night, maybe a little more competitive, and then maybe it had a little more juice left in the tank for West Florida. But again, you can second guess and think about stuff like that and try to overanalyze it. And more times than not, does a shot go in or does it not go in? We didn't. The Valdosta game. Another thing that would have been really nice. We had a couple of our better players. If you look at the stats, and Aaron has been an all-league level player for us, and he was 0 for 8 from 3 Saturday. We're not going to beat Valdosta if Aaron goes 0 for 8 from 3. And he's been shooting in the 40% range from 3 all year, and a lot of games over 50. And he still played a solid game. He had like 12 rebounds and still wound up with 15, 16 points. Was scoring inside, was effective inside, and he got some good wide open looks at the time of the game when it was slipping away from us. And it happened in the beginning of the second half when it went from 12 to 20 really quick. We had a stretch there where, and Aaron wasn't the only one, but, in general, if you look at our stats from Saturday, I don't think he had a great three-point shooting game either. I can't remember his numbers off the top of my head, but there's your 2 for 9 was what he was from 3. That's your 2 best offensive players, your 2 most consistent offensive players. Definitely your 2 best three-point shooters as far as numbers and stuff. And so collectively they were 2 for 17. That's about pretty quick math for a history major. But you're not going to beat Valdosta at Valdosta if your 2 best players or 2 best offensive players go 2 for 17 from 3. So. Thank you.